Okay, we are recording. Ian Prowse, how are you today?
Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. I like the fact we've done that sort of surprise. Oh, hello, mate. How are you? We've been chatting for 10 minutes already.
I know we've been gassing for a while, haven't we?
You good, though?
We should never go to the pub together, mate, because we'd never get out. We didn't even get onto football, did we? So
No, not yet, mate.
lovely.
Oh, so where are you today? You at home?
I'm in Liverpool city centre where I live. Uh,
Glorious.
and yeah, as I told you before, I've just been playing brand new songs to somebody for the first time. It was a very nerve-wracking process. So yeah, but it went very well, so can't
It's
complain.
weird, though, isn't it? As you said, we're obviously going to have a sort of retrospective look back at your creative journey as well on today's show. But
Yeah.
you know, over 30 years down the line and you're still getting twitchy about playing songs for a producer. It's crazy, right?
It is crazy, really, because you think I've earned my stripes now. It doesn't matter if the next batch of songs on, on world beaters because you've done well enough, but it's not like that. It's as vital and as scary as ever. It really
Yeah.
is, and you want to keep up the standard, and you want to have something to say, even now at this, maybe even more so, because as you get older, music has more weight behind it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I find the music that moves me feels even stronger now. Um, and I do think that it's where I came into music, which is, as you can tell by my list, was conviction music.
Yeah.
The punk and new wave explosion. Even though I wasn't quite old enough to be there, it had an amazing effect upon me. And this idea that all of these people who were singing, whether it be Joe Strummer or Costello or Paul Weller, they were just singing as if their lives depended upon it.
Yeah.
It wasn't just to show off. So
You can't fake that either, can you?
no, I don't think so. That level of conviction. Um, and of course, if you're trying to change the world in some way with your music, that's where I came in, and I feel that as keenly now as I ever did. So yeah.
Well, look, let's start talking records, and I'm sure. Well, we're going to talk about one I might you just mentioned, Mad, because I'm going to ask you to tell me, please, in the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
Oh, as I just said, I came of age musically, when I'm age 13, 14, 15, and all of this immense music comes out. And I remember hearing 5 minutes by the Stranglers, and just they had it's like an amazing bass run by Jean-Jacques Bonnel, and he's just like he made it his own. The bass guitar looked the coolest.
How
Get
cool did he look?
Oh, for fuck. He looks the coolest. The bass is the loudest thing in the track. It's
Mm,
louder than the vocals, and just such a strong identity of music. And when the whole band kicked in, and JJ's singing that particular track as well, I absolutely loved it. And I got to be friends with him later on in life, which is whenever if we're sat in a pub with other musicians and we play the "Who's the coolest person in your phone" thing, I always win with JJ.
and and they looked like a gang, didn't they?
They did look like a band as a gang is something that I've always loved.
Yeah,
And my other great intro was London Calling by The Clash.
yeah,
Those two chopped chords of mix beginning it, you feel as though something is going to happen,
yeah,
something portentous, but something important. And I guess The Clash were the greatest ever band as gang,
yeah.
because they had that
Absolutely.
whole Stalinist year zero thing whereby Joe wouldn't speak to his old mates and he wouldn't be referred to as his name, John Mellor. He
Yeah,
was like Joe Strummer now. And I love that level of conviction to saying, we're taking this band of us four fellas in a dark and horrible rehearsal room. It's wet and it's damp, but we're going to try and change the world from this room here. And I love
absolutely.
that. And you can hear it in the music.
And I mean, looking at London Calling, it's it's a pretty swift intro. You don't wait around for long before you get
No.
the slide of the bass coming in as well, and then it's like then you're in.
Yeah.
And so with that and intros, like I want to ask you how you've approached them now to maybe when you first started writing for Pele, back in the day, and because trends in things like streaming services and things like that um, have generally meant that there's more music readily available and people's
Yeah.
attention spans are getting smaller, so they're skipping tracks quickly. Do you feel that you need to make even more of a point of trying to hook them now with an intro than maybe you would have 40 years ago? Or I'm going right around the edges with this question here, but or do you write how you write, and and the song will be the song?
I always, I come from the tradition of these two songs, or say Motown or something like that, whereby the intro it's always specifically hooky, for want of a
Mm.
better word, anyway. So from the very, very beginning of writing songs, I always had try to work on a really telling introduction.
Mm.
So the way the vagaries of the way that we consume music and the way that music change and styles and fashions hasn't really had that much effect upon me. I still try and have something at the beginning of a song that is going to pull you in and just get you going. Oh, as soon as you hear the opening goes, and curiously enough, there's so much music that I hear these days. I'm always listening to new music, trying to search something out that I want to hold close to my heart. I don't find it very often, to be honest with you. And they dispensed with the really strong intro.
Mm.
It just seems to be chords going round and round. Maybe they can't think of a riff or something. I don't know, but yeah, and of course, because everything does change, you have to keep your antenna up and consider it. But I always come back to doing it the way that I've always done it, and I seem to be, you know, I've always had this thing as well as I've been recording and playing, especially as the years have gone by. Stand still. Don't try and chase things, because
Yeah.
if you try and chase things, that as you get to them, they'll disappear into thin air, and you'll be left, wanting. Whereby, if you stand still, eventually it will come to you. So if you've got a style and a purpose and a way of doing things, then it's because essentially all you're doing when you're a songwriter is you're trying to make other people interested in your obsession.
Yeah.
So and it will
and,
come back to them eventually.
and you're right, and I say this about so many things. About, you said style there, and I think stylish music, but don't try and be fashionable, because
Yeah.
fashion comes and goes. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you can wear a pair of bootcut jeans, you can wear a pair of skinny jeans. A pair of 501s is always going to look stylish. And
Yeah.
like, they're never going to come and go. They're always going to be there and they're going to hold their own. But them others, they're going to
I've
come and
got,
go. Do you know
I've
what I
got
mean? There we go. There we go. And a Fred Perry. Do you know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah, there you
There you
go.
go.
But it's true because you can make a fool out of yourself
Yeah.
really easily. And the thing I said there about obsessions, I absolutely adore Bruce Springsteen, and my to the point where my daughter, my only child, she's named after a Springsteen song, which is Rosalita.
Oh, what a song.
Yeah, well, from one of the very early records. And I always say at gigs, she's a teenager now, recently, and she's a scout gobshite now, and she challenges me on it. Why was I called after a Bruce Springsteen song? And I always say to her, listen, you count yourself lucky you weren't called Born to Run, love. So escape by the skin of your teeth there. But with Springsteen, I have no interest in cars whatsoever. I'm
Mm,
just not interested in cars, never have been. Can't imagine I ever will be. But if in a song like Springsteen's Racing in the Streets, where he talks about car parts,
mm,
uh, but he's doing it in such a way that it's heartbreaking, because he's not really talking about cars. He's talking about human relationships, you know. Uh,
mm.
And so I buy it. I buy his obsession at that
Yeah,
point. And
yeah,
that is it's a beautiful thing to learn as a songwriter. If
yeah.
you can drag people along with the things that you're interested in, via either your melodies or your poetry, then that's a massive success, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ian, I'm going to ask you for your second track now, and I'm going to ask you to tell me the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
Emotional impact. Um, which one was it? I've forgotten.
That was the one, if I remember rightly, you sent over.
Yeah. Go on.
You went for the Jam, Modern World.
Oh, Jesus, how could that slip my mind? This was a this was a pivotal moment in my entire life. I was listening, this is even before I went to see them. They were the first band that I ever saw. And I'm upstairs in my bedroom in our little council house in Little Sutton, across the river from here, on Merseyside. And This Is the Modern World comes on. And there's the last verse, say what you like, because I don't care. I know what I am, what I'm going through. It's somewhere I won't preview. Don't have to explain myself to you. I don't give two fucks about your review. And Weller's delivery and his anger. I remember listening to it, and I'm 14, and there are tears pouring down my face of with the passion of it all, and the kind of like I even implicitly understood by that him singing about reviewers and journalists like that might well go against him. And they might slag him and they might try to end his band, with a whatever. But he was strong enough and so brimming with righteous fury that he didn't care and he was going to sing it anyway. And that particular moment, I remember it hit me like a lightning. And it was I always say it was being struck that true and that fast by the Jam. It's still the artistic energy with which I run on to this day, because it was that I was like forged in the fires of rebel music in a way at that
Yeah.
point. So yeah, I'll never forget that. Those exact lines, and of course, before Punk and New Wave, there was no swearing in songs,
Yeah.
So that was shocking in
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah. Of course.
The
If you had to pinpoint the actual emotion, what do
Yeah.
you think it was?
Oh, great question, pal. I think I don't want to say fury because I was only 14.
Yeah.
I know it was all right. We had a lovely council house, my mum and dad, and
Yeah.
I wasn't battling them, and I wasn't battling anybody at school, but it just dredged up out of me. I, I, Injustice, I think, is what it was. I felt as though the injustices of the unfairness of the world was something that I got completely, and I felt as though they were worth trying to change the world.
Yeah.
So I feel so lucky. The Joe Strummer, Paul Weller, Elvis Costello, Jean-Jacques Bonnel, and all the rest of them that came in on the wave of it. Um, there was a definite sense during that era that music could change the world. There's three chords here: form a band, and say something about the world you live in, and don't be complacent. We can change the world, and I'm still of that opinion that in a certain way that music can inspire you. Lennon at his very best. It's the same thing, isn't it? It
Couldn't
has
agree more.
an effect upon the world. So yeah, injustice, I think, is the emotion that he dredged out of me.
Wonderful.
Great question, that. I gotta tell you.
I'm going to ask you now, let's stay in the formative years, mate. And I'm going
Yeah.
to ask you now to tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please.
Oh, I sound like a one track. All of these songs so far are from a very specific era, but it would be Holidays in the Sun
Mm.
because again the same thing. I saw a kid. His name was Jimmy Elliott, and he was in my year, but he had hair in the showers. I always remember. I thought, my God, he's like all hairy, and I wasn't. I
There
wasn't.
was always one, wasn't there? There was always one
He's
that,
like
like,
a man.
yeah,
You go,
that was crazy. There was always that one kid that like he was the one kid that had a motorbike before everyone else as well,
exactly
and
that.
like he had a girlfirriend before everyone else,
And he would be
and
smoking round the in the bike shop.
absolutely, he just looked like one of your dad's mates.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah,
You know, everything about him. He could grow a beard and all of that. And you were a bit scared of him, you know.
yeah,
But he came into school one day, and I've never even said his name since I left school, but it's just come up now. And he had never mind the bollocks under his arm, and he wasn't a punk rocker, but he was fearless enough to carry this almost illegal album with that unbelievable Dayglow cover around school. Because, you know, it's been written about and said a million times, especially by our generation,
yeah.
how carrying your album around told the whole world who you are,
Mm.
this big, you know, vinyl album. And he had that. And we're like, oh, God, he's into this new thing, this punk rock thing. So it immediately made him cool. You
Yeah.
know, immediately set him out from all the rest who were all the older lads in the years above us were still into Deep Purple and
Yeah. And it's got a
well,
swear word on it.
it's got a swear word on it, for God's sake. So then I heard the opening track, Holidays in the Sun. I had a cassette tape with that on. And it's seismic, isn't it? An intro to an album. You know, the jackboots marching and then that riff. I mean, they robbed the riff off the Jam, didn't they? I only found that out later, but and I think it was Noel Gallagher who said, as soon as Johnny Rotten starts anti-singing, everything else that's ever gone before is irrelevant. You know, and I felt that, and a significant part of me is still a year zero kid, as you can tell by my choices here today. Um, Again, I love that music meant that much that you could hang upon this new punk rock, new wave movement, a thing whereby everything that went before was discredited and of no worth. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous as well, but it was for your generation coming in to where your music makes that statement for itself
Yeah.
is unbelievable, isn't it?
That's ridiculous.
Nobody's ever done that. Everything else you've ever heard is shit. Listen to this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that reminds me of school, and you know, you
How
wonder.
was school? Was that something you enjoyed?
Yeah, I quite liked it because I'm an only child. I know, angst-riddled songwriters and rock and rollers are supposed to. It's part of the rock and roll handbook. You have to hate school because of the authority and all of
Of
that.
course.
But I was rubbish at it. And you read my school reports, it's just, you know, takes no notice, is easily distracted, and all the rest of it. And I was good at football, and that was it. But because I was an only child, if I was in the house with my mum and dad, I was bored, you know, because there was nothing to do. That when I went to school, I was amongst all of my peers, you know, so we play football all the time and try and cop off with the girls. So it was more like a playground. So
Yeah.
I like school. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about home as well back then. Like, was home a musical environment?
No, not at all. No. I went to see the Jam on November the 1st, I think it was, at the Liverpool Empire here in 1978. Um, and I just tagged along with all the kids in our street and from all the other council houses. Where it was a Scouse Overspill street, basically. So where I was from was like a satellite town to Liverpool, and we'd all gone across the river to watch the gig, and it had, you know, blown me mind so much. And I just went, well, I'm doing that. What's on that stage there? I'm doing that with my life. And it was Weller, it was Paul, it was, because he came on thrashing at his bright red Rickenbacker, and he was stick thin. I'd never forget. And he had a black suit on, jam shoes, a black shirt, and a bright green fluorescent tie. And they played the song All Mod Cons first. And your first gig's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
You never forget your first gig. And, you know, just the noise of the crowd and the PA and watching the support acts and your ticket and everything. And by the time they did down in the tube station at midnight, I was just like, well, that's what I'm doing. That is my life. And the only problem was I had no musicality because there's no musicians in the family, no musicians on our estate, none in the street. But I've got to do somehow. I've got to learn. So when I got hold of a guitar, I couldn't figure out if I was left-handed or right-handed, and I couldn't hear the notes to tune it. So there was no innate musicality in me. So I had to really mine deep down into myself to find some. There must be something in there. And so I wasn't one of these people. You see, I've met them. I've played with them a lot, whereby they can turn themselves to any instrument and learn it within a month or 6 months. I wasn't like that. I was 2 years
Yeah,
banging away. And eventually it kind of came in and I could hear the notes and I learned how to do it. I didn't know that I had a sense of melody within me, but it turned out that I did. And so I had to learn remotely, you know. And of course, the records that you're listening to, they're not just learning you remotely musically, they're learning you in their themes. You
yeah,
know, what the fucking hell is Sandinista about?
yeah,
Well, Sandinista is, a revolutionary movement in Central America. So they're just, Joe Strummer's educating me as we
yeah,
go here. What does going underground mean?
yeah,
It's a deeply political revolutionary term, and it's gone in at number one.
yeah. Crazy.
How lucky we were! How lucky we were!
So, so from kind of picking up a guitar, and I'm presuming this is like right at the end of the 70s, very early 80s.
Yeah, yeah, 1980,
And
really.
so, being from Liverpool and there's obviously all of the history that had come before then that was
Yeah,
coming out of Liverpool. And then to be playing a guitar and then I'm presuming, I mean, tell me, what you took from what was also happening with what was going on at Eric's with,
yeah.
Big in Japan and Brody and the
Oh,
Bunny Men and stuff like that. I mean, did that make it feel, oh, right, I can do this? Like, there's people from around here that are doing this.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. You'd be walking through town and you'd see Ian McCulloch, and you'd be scared of him because I wasn't quite old enough to go to Eric's, or cool enough,
Mm.
and but you'd see him and you knew he was the fella in that band with the funny
Yeah.
name, and you did it. It brought it into the real world for you that you could
Mm.
walk around, and that Liverpool as a living character, musical character in your life, was right there. So you're incredibly fortunate at this point, because if I was brought up out in the, I don't know, in the Cheshire countryside or something, it's not there right next to you. But it seems then attainable. So it's no problem then to set up a band and have rehearsal rooms in the city centre and see other people and know that it's happening all over the place. Because the city, even to this day, with the collapse of music industry sales and everything, there's still 20 bands a week being formed on the streets of Liverpool.
Yeah. That's
It
fantastic.
the music industry has not died in Liverpool. It's as vibrant as it ever was,
Yeah.
uh, um, which is just amazing. Because a lot of places when the whole concept of buying music ended, at the turn of the century, it kind of, the music industry died with them in places, but not here. So and of course, the backdrop to the whole thing is you got the Beatles,
Yeah.
just cultural phenomenon of all time
Yeah.
across the whole world. And they walk these streets all the time. So those ghosts are around you and within you at all points, And again, how fortunate, really.
Yeah. I've just finished Ian Brody's book.
Oh, what's it
And
like?
it's really interesting, really, really interesting.
You're a lovely
And
fella, Ian.
he comes across like a really nice fella,
Oh,
and he's
not
lovely.
all of them are as nice as Ian.
Like, well, he talks
Oh,
about a lot of them, and he made that scene at Eric sound very, very exciting,
yeah,
and a real hotbed of talent, and
yeah,
it led me. I'll get this quote in before we move on to the next track, but he was talking about McCulloch a lot in it, and and all I just remember, and it's still the greatest quote I've ever heard in music. He was at the time he was doing electrofiction. I think
right,
like
okay,
he'd done he was doing his little side project for a bit in the sort of early 90s, I think it was.
yeah, I remember it. Yeah,
And And I remember reading like an interview with me, I think Select magazine, and they sort of said something about being one of the biggest bands on the planet at one point, and other sort of bands that were doing that, and they mentioned you too, and the simplicity of him just going, "Yeah, I remember when Bono first met me," and I just thought that's fucking genius. Not like when I met Bono, when Bono met me. I
Yeah,
just thought I
exactly.
love that.
By the way, he ain't fucking about.
I know.
I've back I don't know, about 20 years ago, if I saw him out, he knew I was obsessed with Springsteen, so he called me Springo. All right, Springo. I'd say, Ian, what you doing? And he would say dead straight, you go, writing the greatest album ever made. Again.
The world needs people like that.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
All right. Well, look, we're talking about, you just mentioned there, when people stop buying music. So let's kind of put on our rose tinted glasses and go back for this next song. So I'm going to ask you to tell me the first song that you remember buying from a record shop.
Um, Jesus, what was it? I'm sorry about that.
What have I got here? I've got a tube station.
Oh yeah, yeah. We had a little record shop in Little Sutton, across the river where I'm from, called Daymar, and it kind of sprung up fortuitously in about 1977, 1978. And the guy there was getting all of the latest, punk rock and new wave 7 inches in, and then he was when 12 inches became a thing, he started doing them as well. And I remember going in and buy my first record that I actually bought, like that, was down in the tube station at midnight, and I got it home and it jumped, so I had to take it back. It jumped on the outro. The last thing that I sort of lay there on the floor was Jesus said, and it jumped, and that's just they're the great payoff bit at the end of the
Yeah.
song, and I was really gutted, so I had to take it back the next day and get another one. It was fine, but I remember being really nervous it was going to jump in the same place, and it had So Sad About Us and The Night on the B side. So Sad About Us was pretty good, but The Night was rubbish. But yeah, just that, we always say the same thing, but just the sleeve,
Yeah.
just everything. And we did the first single off the last album that we did is a song called Battle in 2022. And we made a video around Soho in central London. And I said to the guy who's making a video, can we go and stand where the Jams stand on the sleeve of down the tube station at midnight? And he let me put it in the video.
Oh,
Yeah.
quality.
It's on Bond Street. I got it off Phil Jupiter's, actually.
Oh,
I
really?
know Phil, and I said, where is it that they're standing? Because he knows all the punk rock, memorabilia, and he knows all the bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, that's where they go. So off we went down there. Fantastic.
Amazing. So Phil
Yeah.
grew up in my venue. So I run a venue in Essex that was called Crocs. It's now called it's been called the Pink Toothbrush for 40 years.
Oh, in Rayleigh.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I never
Yeah,
played
yeah.
there, but it was always on the circuit, wasn't
That's
it?
right. So yeah,
Yeah.
I've run that for 30 odd years.
Oh, wow.
And Phil used to perform as Porky the Poet
Yeah.
way back.
Yeah.
And we made a little documentary about the venue when we turned 30. And Phil come down and
Yeah.
guested in the film and stuff. Like, yeah, what a top lad. Yeah,
Oh,
he's
he's a sweetheart, isn't he?
one
Yeah.
of Essex's finest. He is.
Yeah. God bless. Well, he lives up in Scotland, doesn't
He
he?
does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He moved up there a few years ago, didn't he?
I played with the last 3 UK tours Elvis Costello's done. I've been his opening act, so I'll see Phil when we go up and play up there because he loves all this.
Wonderful. Okay, let's go clubbing. I'm going to ask you now to tell me the song that soundtracked your year's clubbing, please.
Oh yeah. What I like about this is when Pele ended and it kind of just fell apart. It was litigation with Polydor M&G we were on. We'd done 2 albums and a live album, and they were kind of trying to make me go solo, and I was trying to resist it because I like being in a band. But it was I could feel with where we were kind of going nowhere, and we did need to do something different. We hadn't quite crossed over, into having big hits. We were having minor hits, and then eventually it just kind of it whimpered out. It was horrible, and they had us in litigation, so I couldn't do anything. And all the bands who'd supported us just before the Britpop era, all of them, Pulp, Travis, Cast, Sleeper, they'd all been our support acts. And then they all became like well known, and I had to sit it out because I was in litigation with the label and we couldn't move. We're trying to.
How did you cope with that?
Horrible. It was horrible to see them all just leapfrog you. Um, at the time, and it was difficult to deal with because I'd written a third album. We had some really strong songs. It was just the way that we were going to present it. We were arguing with, and a new A&R guy came in, and he viewed us as the old A&R guy's property. So there was that. It's a classic music in the thing. He's like, yeah, they're really great, but they belong to the other guy, and I'm going to bring in my whatever. So you get caught up in the politics of it. And it's just a bit of bad luck. And any musician will tell you that luck plays a massive part in all of this. So what happened was I just had to sit it out. And at the time, I was gutted. As time's gone on, actually, I'm kind of glad I've avoided the Britpop being associated with that. Because I don't think much of it it hasn't aged that well. But and it's allowed me to develop just as a songwriter and everything away from all that. But what I did do while all of this was going on is I went back home because I'd been on the road constantly with Pele, and all my mates, my oldest mates, who's still my oldest mates from Ellesmere Port, were gleefully taking part in the Liverpool rave scene and all of its attendant things that you just can't get away with. If you're going raving, you're getting right off your head.
Yeah.
So I joined in with a gusto, and I loved it, and I loved that sort of music. And that we used to go to a club called Garland's, which was like ostensibly a gay club, but it was kind of mixed. And it was so wonderful. And the atmosphere in there was so fantastic. And that bit in the night where if you had a great DJ on and he got the drop just right, and to this day, and you're just getting there with Gary, Gary Ablett for a local.
Quality.
And to this day, it's just about as much fucking fun as you can have as a human being.
Yeah.
And I always say, if you ever kids, if you ever gonna take one drug, take ecstasy. You only have a window for it because it kind of wears you out. But
yeah,
how it is on your first few E's, back in the day when they were great, there's nothing like it. Nothing at all. So I have very, very fond memories. I wrote 2 songs. One's called I'm a Raver Now, Can You Not See? About a friend of mine who never liked any rave music. And then we took him one night and he just became obsessed with it. And a song called Love Phenomenon, about the amount of the people you used to meet at raves. You'd meet like clergymen and everything. Everybody's loved up. So it's like a list song of the sort of people you'd meet at raves, and they'd be your best mates, So that particular song, Superstar, when that used to come on in Garland's, I used to go and find me pals, and we'd all get down to that. And if you got the drop right, So wonderful times.
Absolutely
lucky that because it was like another punk rock, wasn't it? When all
massively, and I think it's easy to kind of not see it that way, because I think when people think of punk, they just think of 3 chords and rotten. And I think punk's the attitude, isn't it? And I think, the whole thing around rave culture and, acid ass and all of that was completely, just completely DIY, completely punk. And
the whole thing about not knowing where the rave was.
Yeah.
People following each other around the countryside.
Yeah.
That's magnificent. Yeah. That is, that's really from the ground up, proper working class culture.
Yeah. Pirate radio was on fire then, and fantastic. So
sometimes, there must be there's obviously a chemical reason for this. But I remember we go out at the weekend, and we'd have it all, till early hours of the morning. We go to another club afterwards, called the G Bar and all of that in Liverpool. And then it's say round about Wednesday or Thursday, if you heard a rave track that you'd heard at the weekend on the radio, it was the weirdest thing because you'd be off your head again.
Yeah, yeah,
It would re-trigger whatever memory
yeah.
in your system. I go, why am I high again? What's that all about? Wouldn't it? Man. I mean, because I've got a 13-year-old daughter, so you should speak responsibly about, drugs and everything. But I have such great memories of it. I really
Yeah,
do. It wasn't bad. It
absolutely.
was a good thing. It was a good experience.
Absolutely. All right. Well, from the club, let's take you home, and I'm going to ask you to tell me a favourite song from an artist from your home county, please.
Oh, well, here I am ranting on about year zero. And I just felt compelled
I mean,
to,
you're spoiled, mate. You're spoiled where you're from.
mate, no idea. And it's ongoing, it's ongoing. I'm going to say With Him Without You by George Harrison. Obviously, on Sergeant Pepper as part of the Beatles.
Mhm.
But I remember I went to, when I was 14, I was lucky enough. I had an auntie and uncle who emigrated to Dallas in America. My uncle got a job with Texas Instruments, and it was very, very unusual for people to go to America then. And he was just a working class fella from the town, but he got this job because there was another connection with my auntie's. Somebody she knew from years and years ago, from GIs who came over during the war. They'd kept in touch. There's a big base here near Warrington, and they'd gone to emigrate there with my two cousins. And on the first summer there, mum and dad sent me out, And when I think about it, I was only 14. I had to travel all the way there on my own as well. So I had to go down to London on an airplane and then change and get a 9-hour flight to Dallas. And it blew my mind. I was just from a normal council estate. And all of a sudden, I landed in the middle of classic America, double lawn, double garage, swimming pool in the back, a pool table. And at this time, we'd never had a McDonald's. There was no such thing as pizzas. There's no such thing as Mexican food. And all of a sudden, I can drive into these places. And to this day, I still think about it because my mum and dad had saved up all their money. They both worked in factories in unskilled jobs. They saved up my money and sent me. And at the time I just went, but I don't think about the fact that they'd made all these sacrifices for me to
Yeah,
go, which was amazing. But when I got there, it was dark and it was 100 degrees. I'd never seen such things. And my cousins, my two cousins who were my age, two girls, they would say, "Look out for snakes, look out for armadillos," and all these wonderful things. The maddest thing I'd ever seen was a fucking mouse, and all.
yes.
There's these killer creatures. And I went to the local record shop, which was at the end of their street. It wasn't a record shop, it was like a big store, And I bought the Beatles Red and Blue albums to ground me with home, And then I bought Sergeant Pepper while I was there. I thought I'm gonna have a little bit of home while I'm here. And I remember hearing With Him Without You. And it's like what is this? It's a sitar and Eastern music and the scales that he's using and the magnificent production. They've got like the strings on there and the tabla and all of that. But on top of it all, a melody to die for.
Yeah,
I remember George Martin said, he was unsure about it, and then he realised it's as good a piece of music as it is on Sergeant Pepper.
yeah,
Um, and obviously George has, written something, and Here Comes the Sun, and My Sweet Lord and everything. That's one of the maddest things that I've ever come across in my life. Okay, that it's mad that I'm Vaughan gets Paul McCartney and John Lennon together. That's mad that these two immense talents should somehow find each other. But you
mm.
kind of go, okay, they're both in South Liverpool. It's a kind of a niche thing to be involved with. Maybe yeah, that's understandable how that could happen. But George Harrison as well,
Yeah,
third, unbelievable songwriter. That's what's off the fucking scale with the
yeah,
Beatles. Do you
yeah.
know what I mean? That's
Absolutely.
I can't get my head around that.
Who's who had the who's had the best solo career post Beatles.
Well, where in the very early 70s, as soon as he split up, the most successful out of the four of them was Ringo, wasn't it?
It's
Which
true.
which is bizarre, with the photograph and
Hmm.
all that. But I think Lennon's was a bit patchy, wasn't it, later on? I loved his first solo album. It's probably my favorite
Yeah.
Beat solo album because it's so austere and severe and everything. But is it Paul? Is it? What,
I think John.
do you think, John?
Mm,
I think
yeah.
Plastic Ono Band is the best record,
Yeah.
uh, arguably, because he's cut the veins there and he's put it on the
Mm,
vinyl, hasn't he? You know, the song God itself, which is what is an astounding piece of art that is,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, to be honest, they're all right, aren't they? All four of them. Done all
well,
right, aren't
is it a better Paul song than Jet?
they? Yeah, true.
Brilliant. At least run out now. The band have split up,
I
but that,
know, I
you know,
know. And what's weird is, and we say it a lot on this show. I've done nearly 600 episodes of
oh,
this
cool.
show now, Ian. And I think whenever people mention the Smiths, we talk about the time frame and how prolific this band was in this, period of like maybe 5 6 years,
Yeah,
and the amount they progressed. And then you look at the Beatles, and you just think from there to there.
eight
You
years.
go from Twist and Shout to Tomorrow Never Knows to,
Yeah,
Fall on the Hill. And you just, fuck me, man. How the hell do people do that?
yeah. It's outrageous and
Yeah.
will never be repeated.
Yeah.
Uh, um, it. I was talking before. A friend of mine, the guy I was singing the songs to,
Yeah.
was produced the album. He was telling me about how they made Strawberry Fields because he's a doctor in songwriting, and it's edited together and all of that. He goes, it's just mad. They were in the two songs were in different keys, different tempos,
Yeah.
different timing, but they slowed one down, speeded one up, and made it happen. And it's
That's vision, isn't it? That's some mental vision, isn't it?
arguably Strawberry Fields is the greatest record ever made on some
Yeah.
days. Um, Fearlessness is what it is, isn't it? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Fearlessness, and just fuck you. We're going to do this. And then when they got the sense of where the Beatles, we can do anything, and they're putting all the boffins through their paces in Abbey Road.
Yeah.
Come on, I love it. I love it all.
Right. This is your last track, mate. And I'm going to
Okay.
ask you now to tell me a song that you think many people may not know that you would like them to hear, please.
Okay. Yeah. My favorite song of last year is by an artist from Middlesbrough called Amelia Coburn. And the song is called When the Tide Comes In. And it's the most beautiful melody. And I had a really lovely little story came about how I found her music. I was playing in Totnes in Devon on last year. I was on tour. We played a lot of out the way places. Went over to West Cork and the Isle of Man and down into Cornwall and everything. It was great. And I was playing this gig. Once I've sound checked, I kind of start to get nervous. So I always go for a long walk out the way. And I'd walk right out into the Devonshire hills. And I'm kind of walking along this beautiful summer evening. This lovely kind of dusty early evening uh, back road, filled with trees and everything. And I came across a telephone pole miles from anywhere, and on a telephone pole somebody had put a poster, an advert for a gig. I'm kind of stood there looking. I go, who the hell's going to see that? This is surely a waste of time for the promoter to
Yeah.
bring this out there. That poster should be in the town or whatever. It's just going to be wasted. And I was thinking about that's a mad thing to do. I thought, tell you what, let's not waste this poster. I'll listen to the artist, and it was Amelia Coburn. So I sat down on a bench that was there, and I listened to it, and the song just knocked me out. It's a beautiful piece of music, ostensibly like kind of folk music, but it's got something else, which is specifically her. And her singing in a Teesside accent is lovely. So I went online to think, is she playing Liverpool soon? I'll go and watch it. And I went to her Facebook page, and I just said, oh, I've just found your music in this really weird way. If you ever play in Liverpool, great. And I put this public post up. I went and did my gig and woke up in the morning. She'd responded to the post. And she said, "You're not going to believe this." She said, "I came to your Monday club, which is a club I run every Monday. I'll be doing it tonight in the Cavern. We've been doing it for 14 years. And there's a strict rule. People have to play their own songs, cover versions are banned." And she said, "Me and my dad came to your club and I wanted to play. And you wouldn't let me play because I didn't have any of my own songs. So I went home the day after and started to write songs because of your Monday club."
Ah,
Like, oh, you're kidding me. And she actually came back to the Monday Club last week, 10 years later. And she put in probably the best performance I think we've ever had at the club. And we've had something like 12,500 separate performances with this song. And she's been she was one of Paul Weller's favorite last the album was one of his favorites from last year. And so I have an interest of I hope she does really well, because she came to the Monday Club all those years ago, and she's great as well. And hopefully we'll get her to do some shows with us at some point this year. And the particular reason I like it is because I've never. She's doing something new with something old,
yeah,
and also it struck me watching her play. She's playing a ukulele. I thought I hated ukuleles, especially
yeah,
the orchestras. They do me head in.
yeah.
But I went, oh my God, she's playing ukulele. I'm gonna have to reassess my this in loving the way that she does her songs.
Yeah.
It haven't even struck me. So yeah, there you go, Amelia Cook.
Oh, fantastic. What a great story.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Well, look, we make it easy for people to go and check that out and to check out all of the songs that we've spoken about. And we'll put a lot of your music on there as well, because we put a little Spotify playlist together to accompany each show so people can go and
Fantastic.
get lost
Good idea.
in all the things that we've been speaking about today. And we haven't really spoken about your music too much today. We've been too busy banging on about other people's music. So, what's happening? Where are you at the moment? What's going on?
Well, it's a very exciting time for us because, as I said, I've been up the mountain and down into the valley with my career. I've had the highs and lows. I've been absolutely loaded and then stone broken up and down and all of that. But for the past 5 or 6 years, I've got to a position where it's been as most successful it's ever been. And that's been helped along by being out on the road with Elvis Costello a lot and playing with Wonder Stuff and the Blow Monkeys. And I had a great pandemic because I did this thing on Facebook every Friday night to about 1,000 people playing and keeping people's spirits up. So I enjoyed myself. And now we play gigs, and we sold out the 100 Club, and I'm always out on the road, going out on the road with the Levelers next month.
Oh,
So I
wonderful.
really can't complain. And I've on this very day, I've just played 12 new songs to see if we can start recording them, and I've had the green light. The guy came in, he just went, "This is fantastic, we're on." So I'm having a good time, and a lot of people are coming out and watching us. And this year is 20 years since my most famous song got released. Does This Train Stop on Merseyside? So we're touring the whole country with
Oh,
the full
wonderful.
band. And if you come and watch us, you're gonna get everything. You're gonna get some rabble rousing. You're gonna get a bit of fun. You're gonna get a load of joyful music, soul music, and you're gonna get some tears as well. I attempt to be the Scouse Springsteen at every turn, and that's what we do because I have great respect for the audience. They're spending a lot of money to come out and watch you. I always keep the tickets with ticket prices being a live issue. I say let's not charge people any more than 20 quid ever. And then when they do come, they made a big effort, so they get 100% out of me. So that's what we're doing for this year. We're going to record a new album, and we're going to be out on the road with the band playing. Does This Train Stop on Merseyside and a lot of songs from that era. But I always play all my very best Pele songs, Amsterdam, and songs I've released under my own. So I'm not one of these who won't play older songs. I play them and I play the new ones. It's a bit of everything.
What more do you want from a night
Do you know what I mean?
out?
And then, of course, As soon as the gig finishes, I'm one of them. I go out to the merch store, so I'll sit and yap about football and politics, and music to anybody,
Yeah.
the chat, because these things are eternally fascinating to me, you know. And in a world of fucking Trumps and Musks and
Oh, mate.
else, we could go on forever. We've got to form a resistance against this malignancy we have found ourselves. So yeah, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of work to do, and it all set to the background of having a pint.
Perfect, mate. Perfect. Um, and if people want to keep up to speed with releases and tours and wherever they can come and natter to you at the merch stand, where's the best place to keep up with things?
Um, I'm I am incredibly ubiquitous. You can just put my name into Google and you'll see all my. I'm on. There's a few Facebooks. There's Amsterdam Dash Music is where you'll get the tickets for the shows or order the records or T-shirts. Those famous Pele T-shirts, we still do them with the four.
Oh, mate, I had one of them and I loved it, mate.
They're everywhere. They get everywhere. So yeah, that's it. I'm very easy to find online.
Wonderful. We'll put them links in the show notes to this show. So we'll make it nice and easy for people to go and have a look if they haven't done already. Ian, mate, it's been an absolute delight talking records with
And
you.
you. And thanks for such good questions.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Think.
Well, look, I'm going to press stop, but don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Thank you, mate.